How we doing, guys? Jay here from Just Technics, back from a week off. It's been fantastic. First thing on the Monday morning, and I'm already stuck well into it with another Frankendeck turntable. These things have been on the rise over the last, 3 months through these doors. They're not seem to be getting any better. There are a few things to be made aware of in your purchasing techniques now, especially from this said seller. And there's a few different tactics he's changed, one of which I'm going to show you in a minute. I'm also going to show you the difference between the boxes that these turntables come with compared to the similar box of what a genuine box should look like. So I'm going to turn the camera around in a second. We'll start off by looking at the boxes, then we'll mount my camera with a top-down view, and you'll see me stripping this turntable down, and we'll see if there's anything untoward, which there probably will be, as I've already spotted a few things without even dismantling the turntable. So give me a second, pause the video, we'll have a look at the boxes. Okay, so here we have an aftermarket box. Now, before anyone starts slating me and saying, oh, it's just a box. Yes, I understand it is just a box. But you need to understand, if you are purchasing one of these turntables and it states that it comes with the original box, that's where things draw the line with me, because it's not an original box. And the easy way to spot this, guys, there's two ways of spotting it. Serial number on the top. They don't have this serial number. Okay, they do not have this. And I'm going to show you in a minute that this serial number actually is meant to correspond with the warranty sticker on the back of the turntable, which you've seen on a lot of these Frankendeck turntables. They all have warranty stickers that covered the base and across the top of the plinth. And this number here should actually correspond with it. This one's one digit out. I think there's obviously sold as a pair. So this has been bought from another seller who's probably bought these from the guy that makes them. So first thing off the bat, height differences. You can clearly see here, even though this corner is crumpled, there is still a very big difference in height between the two boxes. Okay, you can see the difference between the distance between the bottom line on the underneath the Technics graphic and here as well. The replicated graphics, and the easiest way to tell, one is the warranty sticker serial number on the box, two are the foam internals. Now these have 2 blocks of foam with a turntable sit inside. They're also meant to have bars of foam that go over the top, usually to support the platter. This one hasn't got that from this seller at the moment. I believe maybe the seller that sold them to my customer may have disposed of it. But these don't have foam, guys. They have polystyrene. You would have already seen this a million times before from watching videos. But if you are buying turntables and they come in these boxes with this internal foam, be wary. That's alarm bell number 1 and number 2 with the warranty sticker. This is obviously an original box. There's nothing inside here to show you as far as polystyrene is concerned. My customer's just got the boxes because they're very, very old. But yeah, height differences, graphics you can see are higher up on these. They're a bigger box with different internals, and that is what an aftermarket or replicated box looks like. Now let's jump onto the turntable. I'm going to quickly mount my camera, so bear with me. Okay, so carrying on this video now, so this is the top-down view of this single 1200 Mark II. So the paint, straight off the bat, isn't the original colour. Now, I know the seller states these has been refurbished. So again, if you're understanding it's a refurbished turntable, if it claims it's been fully serviced and everything's original, different kettle of fish. But there's a big difference between fully refurbished and serviced and something that's just been stripped down, resprayed and hobbled together to make it look like something half decent where the internals haven't been touched. And I guarantee now this will be exactly the same as just about every other deck that comes through these doors. Now, remember I said right at the very beginning of the video, there's a couple of things that I spotted straight off the bat, which are different to what normally comes in through my door from this said seller. The first thing, if you really are one of the eagle-eyed among you will notice this, the platter hasn't been sprayed over the top towards the edge. Normally, this has been resprayed black, the sticker would have been removed and it's sprayed right to the edge. This platter has definitely been sanded. I mean, I don't know if you can see this on the camera. Move my lamp over just a little bit more. But it has been sanded. You see all the graininess around this. There you go. If I can try and pick this up on the camera, you may just be able to see this. That has definitely been sanded. It's the exact same consistency all the way around, and there is no way that I can get this looking like new. So if you look at the top of the platter, See a nice sheen across the top? And then if you look here, this is the easiest way to spot it. Look at the edge difference. Shiny there, non-shiny here, and all the way down. It's been sanded. So this is no different to before, apart from he hasn't sprayed the top all the way across to the edge to make it look original. So this is something to be made aware of, guys, if you are looking at these turntables or looking at any of these online. So yeah, the paint quality of this, I've got to be honest, the paint, yes, it doesn't match, but the paint quality is actually pretty good. I mean, it's no sharp areas, no bubbles, etc. The graphics are a telltale straight away that this is not an original deck, but again, if it's being sold as a refurbished deck, then you can have anything on, can't it? So these aren't original. The way that lets this down, though, unfortunately, is around the pitch trim area. Now, I don't know if you can make this out on the camera. You actually can. So if you look here, see, it looks a lot lighter there on the corner. You'd probably think it's been scratched just by looking at the camera, but it's not. This trim is the original trim, and what they've done, they've actually masked around, by the looks of things, masked around the trim to keep it on the turntable, and then sprayed the plinth with the trim still in place. Now, I know that for a fact, so if I lift this up, and I hold this at an angle, if you look really carefully here, it picks it up on the camera. If you look at the shading cloth that sticks underneath the plinth, look at the colour of the shading cloth. It's the same colour as the paint that was used to respray the plinth. So there's no way around getting around saying that this was replaced, because it's not new, it's not replaced. And again, refurbished, I would have stripped this all down and at least changed the pitch trim and the shading cloth. I mean, come on, there's no excuse. Now, from initially plugging this in and turning this on, the actual on-off start and stop assembly on-off switch itself is, you can see it on the camera, it's very, very firm. It's obviously has been re-greased, I'd imagine. It's a bit overkill for what this is, but again, it's very, very firm. LEDs don't show up too well on the platter because the nice sharpness and shininess of the strobe dots has now been removed because it's been sanded. It's a shame. Should have left it original, just left it alone. But 0%, I don't know if the camera's actually going to focus. There we go. Your 0%, which obviously locks at 0 on a Mark II, is fine. But when you move it away from the 0, if we move it away, straight away you see it moving. But if we move this to its normal positions on here, whether it's aftermarket or genuine pitch, you should at least have 2.5 normally for the plus 3.3. The 3.3 on this particular one here is just before 2. The camera's having a bit of trouble trying to focus. I'm sorry, guys. So I'll move this across a bit. There we go. So 2 for the 3.3. And then if you keep moving up ever so slightly more, your plus 6 is under 4. I don't know if you can see this on the camera. So the pitch hasn't been calibrated correctly at all. Now, if I'm a betting man with this, I would say this is probably going to be the original pitch slider unit that's been simply stripped down, re-greased and popped back, because the minus 3.3 is near enough at 3. Normally with aftermarket slider units, your 3.3 on either end of the scale is usually 2.5, near 3 if you're lucky, depending on the calibration on the plus setting. Minus is normally around the 2 to 2.5. The fact that this is sitting higher on the minus area and lower on the plus area suggests to me that this is an original slider that has simply been, well, slammed back in there with any calibration settings. So that's that. The switches feel original. The pop-up on this one, you can hear it, slams right up. Now, underneath a pop-up assembly, I'll show you what a pop-up looks like. So I've actually got a pair of them sitting about 2 foot next to me that are in bits at the moment. What you have, depending on the model and the age of these turntables, this is a newer one, so there's 2 different versions of this. See this rubber section here? When you hit the plunger, this stops the unit from going any higher. And you've also got a sheave here where the cables go through. And if you imagine this has come loose or has been taken off, this cable will be cutting into the inner assembly of the pop-up. So in turn, stops the lamp from working and can cause serious problems, because where this connects onto the main board it's not a very good idea to just hobble this together. So that's what an original one will look like. There's two different versions. There's this one here, which is a lot thicker than the older versions. And they also got one that's about half the size. So it's like a stick of rubber that sticks around there. And what I can tell you with this one now is it's going to be the older version, which has simply either been taken off completely or it's come loose and I haven't bothered to adhesive it down. And that is why it springs straight back up. Now you've got an LED on here as well. And the reason I know this for a fact, if you look at this here, it's not projecting out onto the turntable. Even with the darkness around this bit here, you can't see anything projecting other than just straight in front of the lamp. And again, my camera is going out of focus. What is going on with this? I'm sorry, guys. There we go. Is it going to do it? Hang on. There we go. Yeah, so it's not projecting any further than just near the strobe dots. The reason for that is he's put a 4mm LED in there. And obviously you can't bend them. Or 5mm LED. So it sits upright and the brightest point of the LED will be the top. Now with an M5G or Mark V onwards, these have bigger LEDs in them because they have a reflective backing on the insides of the actual tower, so it projects the actual output onto your record. Problem is if you do this with a larger LED in an older unit, the reflective sheet isn't there, hence why you're not seeing anything on the record or on top of the platter at this particular moment. So it's hitting the top of the tower and not going anywhere. So that's going to have an LED in there for 100%. Next step now is going to be take the turntable apart. I'm going to do this again on video. Hopefully the camera's not going to blur while I do this, guys, but we'll take each part off individually. So we'll start with the platter. Obviously take the turntable, the power out on here. We've got the original power cable with the usual suspect UK plugs on them. Again, a plug is a plug. I wouldn't go worrying too much about that. But we'll cut all this out. It's all going to be stripped down. We will start by taking the platter off. And again, if I do this again, you'll see here where it's been sanded down to the top, which is not sanded down. So you can see the difference quite clearly now. I've got it really close. Underneath, I haven't looked at any of this yet. This needs to all be straightened back, nice and true, so it's not in any horrible shapes. That should be nice and round. That obviously hasn't been touched. We'll get the platter out of the way. Let's start with removing the obvious parts. Now, I'm not going to be using a electric screwdriver on this occasion, guys, because it's currently charging at the moment. So the shading cloth has been replaced. So we'll get that out of the way. We'll take the rear weight off the turntable too. We'll also take the lever lift off of it. Actually lets me, that hasn't even, I don't think that's ever been out. Oh, Jesus. That's wanting to remove. Okay, we'll leave that for the minute because that's not wanting to lift. Great, fantastic. We'll leave these two parts in place for the minute. I know I normally strip it all down, but this is just to show you an overview of the deck. That's going to be interesting. I might have to polish that in there, but I'd like to take that out at some point. Let's get the plastic cover off of this and see what we're working with, guys, shall we? So again, electrical screwdriver. I'll neatly put my screws out of the way. I haven't got the storage tubs on this at the moment. But yeah, so basically, guys, I was off for the last week. It's my first week off of this year. My birthday was on Friday. Spent most of the time, well, I spent most of the time in my little studio at home making some trance music. That's what I love doing. And then Friday, plenty of Guinness in the beer garden up in Colchester. In the beer garden here, absolutely lovely. Massive thanks to my other half, Kimberly, for that. It was great fun. Good food as well. Got a phone call about my bike as well. That's another story I'll go into in a minute. Right, so yeah, plastic cover off. The 5 screws are taken off of that now. We'll move it out of the way completely and see what's lurking underneath. So again, usual suspects. Thermal paste. Looks like a mixture between the original thermal paste on top of the regulator and obviously the horrible, gunky, brown-looking thermal paste, which is normally what I tend to see with these. All of the solder points on there are all original untouched. So this is one thing I do like about doing these turntables, because even though this solder's serviced and refurbished, these don't tend to ever be serviced. So at least when I do tend to look at the ones that haven't been hodged together like a cut and shut, where you have 2 cars back to front, when they are like this and nothing has been touched, I'm in a much happier mood working on these turntables. So this, for an example, if we look at the the connections that go between the fuse board, the transformer to the main board, this hasn't been touched. This is all original. So there's no extra solder or anything popped onto these two rails. These have all been round in the factory, so he hasn't touched any of that. So I'm very confident in saying that this board, fuse board, transformer, etc., is all original, which is really, really good. So what I'm going to do now, let me just see. So I think what I'm going to do, excuse me, we're going to cut the cable connection and get this off. Now normally with these, I tend to remove the cable tie, actually pick at the insides of the cable tie and lift that out, because normally you'd have cable ties everywhere on here. So you'd have one here securing the pop-up assembly, and obviously here as well. Sometimes you get one here too for the operation-based wiring harness. This obviously hasn't got that. Power's out the wall, so we know it's safe to do this. But as we're changing the power cable for this customer anyway, putting a newer cable on, it's a good idea just to clip it out the way. Also means I can move it like this. A nice sharp pair of electrical snips, get it in there, take that out the way. There we go. That's the first step. Put this here, there we go. We'll take the sleeving off for the time being. And instead of just taking all that out like I normally do, in fact, yes, I will take that out. Let's get an old pair of, I'll try and get a bigger pliers. Let's just get this like this. It's all going to be changed and polished and all my usual bits. There we go. And out the way you go. So there's your power cable gone. Obviously we've got the original grommet here as well. I'm not a big fan of these, unfortunately, because it puts the cable in there so tight, but I tend to change these over with just about every turntable. Well, I do change them over. Every turntable that comes through has new grommets. This can go straight in the bin. That's the original power cable. We're going to just quickly tie that up, wind it in a knot, and get this out of the way. As with anything original, I'll keep them to one side. If the customer would like them back, they're more than welcome to them, because they obviously belong to my customer, or my customers that bring these in. So anyone that brings turntables into me for service work, rest assured that nothing is physically kept here. If I change your pitch controls over and everything else is changed over, and there are parts here that are still in good usable condition, or I feel that you can make money on them, you're more than welcome to them back. I mean, they're yours, they're your parts, so why on earth would I keep them? Right, so let's do what I was just talking about a second ago with the cables here. So where's my prying tool? So what I tend to do, you've got to be very careful with these connectors. I very rarely ever tell anybody about these on the videos, but if you imagine you've got two plastic lugs that sit one either side of each connector, they're actually pretty delicate. Now, depending on how long these have been sitting within the board, they can get quite tough, and the connection points get tough as well. So you'll find that if you try to yank these out, they may very well come out quite easily, but there is a risk that you can damage the plastic sections on the side. So you'll only end up having one side that locks, or you might actually break both of these off completely. And in turn, a lot of people will either hot glue these back on, or they'll physically wire them onto the board to have a permanent connection. But you can just replace the wiring harness. But by doing it this way, as long as they haven't been taken off and broken in the process by the previous seller, who obviously refurbishes these, it just makes life a lot easier. So these are okay. So we know that we can reuse these. We'll do the same thing with the pitch control harness. There we go. Again, they're fine. We'll do the same thing now with the pop-up, without touching that horrible gooey mess that is all that thermal paste. There we go. That came out relatively easy without even having to give that any wellies. So all of the plastic lugs, again, these can break off, so you've got to be very, very careful when you remove them. That's the wiring harness done. Fantastic. What I'm also going to do while I'm here, we'll quickly grab this. Where's my cheap multimeter? Don't need nothing special to show you this. I use a very basic unit multimeter just so that I can use it for continuity. But for videos like this is fantastic. So a continuity meter, ideally you want something that when it's in continuity mode, you can touch the two probes together, it'll make an audible noise like that. So the idea is, if you're testing connections, say for an example, the ends of the sockets for your connector pins on the ends of your tone arm sockets to the ends of the cables themselves, you can have one on the inside of the arm, other one on its positive or negative pin on the actual arm of the cable, and they'll make an audible beep when you touch them together. That's what I use this for. But I tend to use the cheaper one when I'm doing videos like this, put it in 20K mode, and just to see what's going on with the readings on this. Now, normally, if I'd have thought of this before, I would have connected it back up, but if we do it on the red and the brown, let's see if it does pick anything up. It does. I think we might be able to get away with this. Come on, Jay, let's get the angle right for this. We'll do it the proper way. Let's do it the proper way. Let's put it back on. We'll put it back on there. We can easily get to the points now. There we go. I don't know if you can see this because it's saying pause on my monitor, on my screen here. But you should be able to see this when I upload it. The pitch control is sitting at 2.49K. Now, that should be starting base with these sliders, whether they're genuine or aftermarket. Starting them at 2.70 as stated in the service manual is a good starting point. Now, the service manual was never changed from when the original release versions in 79 all the way up to 2010. This setting was still stated at 2.70K. Now, it's not right. Okay, up to a certain point, when you find you have the newer -2 slider units, you'll find you'll be setting them at all different values. And just setting them at the values within the service manual and going, that'll do, that's fine, is not job done. This is no excuse, though. This is completely wrong. As you can see here with the black probe on the brown wire, and then we'll put the red probe on the red wire here. Try and get a connection again, if it actually lets me do it. Come on, Jay. This is why you don't use cheap multimeters, but it's a good example. 2.5. That should be 2.7 minimum or 2.49 here now. So that's set completely wrong. Completely wrong. So that's peace of mind for me, because I know that is a genuine unit that's been set at the incorrect calibration settings. This is going to be changed anyway. So the slider's going to be changed. The trim is going to be changed to get rid of this horrible paint over the top without hopefully without removing any of the paint. Shading cloth's also going to get removed. But now let's take the wiring harness off of here now. There we go. Fantastic. Right. Next step is going to be getting this beauty upside down so that we can access the back, the base, and get all the screws out. Now, I've got various different bases and parts that I can use to take this upside down. I'm trying to find another one here to spare. Let's use this jig. Okay, let's use this one. Without shaking the camera would be a good idea. In fact, before we do anything, let's have a good look at this. So you've got the warranty sticker here. As you can see, it's stuck quarter way over the bottom of the plinth here, as well as the rubber base. And the security number that I was telling you about, the warranty sticker number or the serial number that's on the box, should correspond with this. But from looking at this earlier, the warranty sticker doesn't match with the serial number on the box. So I'm a betting man with this. If he had a pair of them, he's simply given the box, the incorrect box for this one with the other turntable. So that's why they don't match up. But they shouldn't have this warranty sticker. Okay, they're not worth the paper they're printed on anyway, guys, because I know what to expect whenever I look at these. The serial number has also been loosely sprayed over, as you can see. It's just another hodgepodge put back together and hoping that no one ever wants to go inside them. So, according to my customer, the cable has been changed over by the seller that sold them to him. Now, I'm presuming that this isn't the guy that's obviously selling these decks and respraying them. This is just a private seller. He reckons he's changed the cables over for this. So I'm not going to be judging too much about the way that the cable has been replaced, because everyone's got their own way of fixing things if they need them to work. We've got a grounding cable here that looks like what you'd normally expect on these turntables, and that is a lot longer when you do put these out. So customers obviously, the private sellers obviously changed these cables over. As cheap cables go, these aren't actually too bad, to be honest. I mean, they do the job, but there is much better cables out there. But when you're paying, for £5 for a 3-metre cable that you're cutting in half and you need to get a pair of them done for your home use, I suppose you can't really knock it that much, can you? So, needs must and all that if you're doing it at home. So there's the feet. Again, these haven't been touched, clean, nothing, but obviously I take a lot of pride in what I do. Some people just purely don't do that. Let's get the screws out of here now. I'll try and do it so you can see the whole thing on the camera. So normally with these, if you're not careful, the underneath the operation base, it threads onto plastic. You've got to be very careful. Otherwise, if you break that, you've got to replace the operation base, or you simply do not put the longer screw back in the corner. And it is purely up to whoever decides to take on the task of taking their deck apart and working on them. But I would just say do not use anything electrical really to undo that corner unless you're used to constantly removing them and you know the biting point as to where, you know, where it stops. I tend to just use a screwdriver pretty much on the corners. Let's do the same thing here. Again, these screws, that's wrong. Yeah, that's not even threading in, that one. You can see here it's not even wanting to undo. So let's try and just pull this up and hope that I can use the magnet on the end of the screwdriver to try and lift this. Hang on, let's just use my prying tool. Come on, Jay. If not, we'll lift it up at the base. It's not the end of the world. There we go. So a little bit of persuasion, but that's not even threading into the threads. As you can see, two different types. Get them out of the way. That one did want to thread in. So these are the original screws. Mix mash of parts. So look, there's about three different types of screws. These, you've got the early type, and you've got the later type, and then you've got the type that shouldn't even be on them. So, good example of something that's been taken apart and screws from all different turntables have been used, sitting in someone's box without even being bothered to match them up. The two at the front are also not the same. That's had a lot of pressure popped on that at some point, as you can see, has bowed it outwards with the amount of pressure that's been used. Right, so that's them. Just have 6 of them. Let's get all these inner ones out. So we've got 1, 2. Let's just crack on with these. But yeah, so I had a week off, and basically what I was saying about my bike, I've got a Ducati 749 now, guys. I had a Ninja 636 a little while ago, and opportunity came up to grab a Ducati in really, really nice condition. It's been 4 previous owners and done about 9,500 miles. Ducati 749 dark, so it's in a matte black, looks absolutely beautiful. But the bike hadn't turned a wheel, hadn't done a mile since I think towards the end of 2022. So it had a really expensive service called a Desmo service before the dealership bought the bike. And the usual thing, you know, the mileage all mounts up, so it definitely is honest, in fact, that it hasn't been used, but the dealership didn't know. That's what he tells me. I tend to disbelieve them. Most of them just say anything they want to get a sale, don't they? But he did a basic service on it, changed spark plugs, all the usual bits, but the bike wasn't running right, and ran out to the local Ducati specialist. Glenn over at Moto V did a fantastic job. Literally got it in, and being a Ducati, it's a V twin, so you got a front and back cylinder. They meant he did a compression test, and the back cylinder was running 140-ish psi, and the front was listed as 5 psi. So from new, he reckons it's never been adjusted, and I believe him because there's not enough space within the unit to actually have any adjustments. It looks like it's been running as a single cylinder since day dot in 2005, which is incredible. So these 4 previous owners have been using a Ducati 749 as a single cylinder and not a V-twin, and losing out on a ton of power. And it's all done now, and it's running exactly as it should be, and I'm picking it up on Wednesday, so really looking forward to that. Right, so you can see from the minute I lifted that up, like I say, these warranty stickers are not worth the money they're printed on at all. It's left hardly any residue there, and it'll come with a little bit of alcohol cleaner. So it's just sitting here on the plimphlet, which that will all be removed when my customer gets this back. So there's your base. Again, dirty, hasn't been cleaned, all the usual things that tends to happen. It was a bit sticky. You could hear it when I lifted it up, and that wasn't the sticker because the adhesive isn't as strong as they hope it is with them. We'll get that out of the way. Let's look at the obvious bits. Obviously, there's no sockets on here. The back plates have been removed. So they haven't bothered to do anything with sockets. They are readily available. But you've got void on the back of these. Again, makes no difference. Straight in the bin. I wouldn't really trust any warranty from these guys. As for the cables, these are going to go straight in the bin as well, or given back to the customer. So these can be simply cut off, wound together with the grounding cable. And you can see here from the tight point here how much longer the original cable that was installed by the seller was. So again, there's no judgment there. If you're going to change over your own cable and you're okay with a soldering iron, you're doing it yourself, nothing wrong with doing that. Right, let's get this base off. So straight off the bat, hang on a minute before I do anything. Look at that. Straight off the bat, guys, there is no screws. There should be 6 screws holding down the weighted section, and surprise, surprise, just like every single Franken-Deck that comes through this door, there are no screws holding down the weighted section. Absolutely ridiculous. You're meant to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws on this style, and there is nothing at all. So that's going to have to be rectified for my customer. Inner side of it, again, it's the usual thing. Dirty. I don't even know what that is, but dirty, filthy, sticky beer residue on there too. No surprise. Let's get that out of the way. Putting on another workbench in my unit. So this is exactly as expected here, guys. Look at this. Pitch control has been in at some point. You can clearly see that, and I could feel it. It's burnt the heat pad off. This looks really bad. Original pots on there as well. This is really bad too. So let's unscrew the pitch so I can show you a closer look. See, the thing is, I enjoy doing this, and I enjoy finding problems and rectifying them for customers. But almost two different types of screws, different colours, newer, older. I enjoy doing what I do, but I feel bad for customers that spend the money on buying these decks, not realising what they're getting. But you can see just from the state of the board how bad this is. But yeah, solder and point, lamplet solder point here. Really bad, that's gone. That is lifting on the corner. As you can see here, right on there, look. That's disgusting. Look at this, look. And the pitch control, if I get my light in there at an angle, that's the original pitch. I can see the out sticker. So that's definitely an original pitch unit. These are hanging on by a thread. Great. So that's the pitch out. That's the first thing there. Let's now look at the cable. Bloody hell. So he's left the cable, the harness tape on the side. You just saw me take that off. Cable's all flattened here. Luckily for my customer, that hasn't broken through the sleeving. Now there's two options with this, because it hasn't broken through the sleeving. It's not going to cause any problems as long as the continuity from end to end is good, and we could simply re-thread this back through, or you take it apart and pop a new cable on. Make your own cable, which is the way to do it. As for the cable itself, I'll tell you, we'll have a quick look at the solder job, just for the hell of it, because I do like being surprised by some of my customers. Just to tend to do, some of them do a really good job. So we've got the screws for the plate. Oh, that was easy. Let's get, at least it's got the support in there. I've seen so many people that pry these with big screwdrivers to try and get these off and damage the hell out of them. You haven't got to do any of that. Take the plate off. That ain't too bad. I'll tell you, that's not bad. It's not the worst of sim. Ain't the best of sim, but you've got a newer board on there as well, so the board's been replaced. Soldering isn't great on that, I must admit, but I may be able to save that board, which is good for my customer. Yeah, that ain't the worst of sim. It's a good. Okay, just wanted to be curious more than anything, but at least I know if the pads are good on that board, because it looks like a new board, then I may very well be able to save that. It saves me customer a few quid as well, which is good. Not very expensive, but it's just nice to check. These screws, as you can see, aren't taking a lot of pressure to remove. Look, so again, not a lot of pressure to remove them. There we go. And the good thing about this jig that I use, the arm drops about that much. So there's no risk of damaging anything. Plus it's all made out of foam. And because the arm bearings are going to need to be replaced on this, I've seen this way too much. Doesn't matter too much, does it? But just to show you, grab hold of the arm. Got no movement there across the top, I don't think. You can hear that. That appears to be. Well, look, the bearing pivot is definitely sitting much lower than it should. Ah, there we go. Side bearings definitely need attention. And judging by how low this is sitting here, I'd imagine the top bearings need attention too. But we're used to seeing that on videos. So we'll get that arm out the way. We're now going to unscrew my lamp out the way so we can actually do this with the camera still showing. Unscrew the 2 screws that support the lamp. It's very awkward trying to do this. The camera is actually sitting much lower than I usually do. I've only just thrown this together just so I could quickly get this on a video for you before I upload it straight to YouTube for you guys. So 2 screws out here. There's no harness tape or anything holding this on, so we know it's not going to be hard to pull out. And I was absolutely spot on with this. So if we look with my lamp, this is the older style. Remember I showed you the other one? It was sitting a little bit lower. This is completely loose, look. As you can see, adhesive, that's come completely off. There is no excuse for this. And if you imagine that's off and you hit that up, eventually that will eat into the sleeving, eat into the cables and short it. So that needs attention. It's going to be stripped down, cleaned, re-greased on there. Jobs are good. But we've definitely got an LED in there. You can probably see it from here as well. LED that shouldn't be in there. It's the wrong size. We'll get that out of the way. Next, let's get the operation base screws. That one there. Here we go. Again, the lamp is in the way. Sorry, guys. 1, 2. And the 3 surrounding screws and the one that holds down the actual PCB and the plastic operation base assembly to the plinth. Come on, Jay. There we go. Lovely. At least for once, these screws are actually the right size and they're not a mix and match. But either way, that is an original board with nothing reflowed, nothing touched, with the original tactile switches 100% on there. Now, I said this felt quite firm, and you could actually see, what the hell was that? It just fell out. The ball bearing's just fallen out. Look at this, look. So there actually isn't a ball bearing on the housing. They put this all back together with no ball bearing. And look at the state of the ball bearing. Again, straight in the bin with that. This is all going to get stripped down. That is caked in grease. You can see just how firm that is. So we'll strip that all down. Now, let's look at the trim and everything after. Let's get this board out of the deck. We'll have a look underneath. A betting man on this, I don't think any of this has been touched. But we will find out when I take this down. So let's start with the transistor in the corner, top of the board. This is where things get very messy and horrible. Be very careful not to touch the screws. Again, screws different colours. One from a new, one from an old. So we know this isn't all come from the same turntable. It's very difficult now to know exactly what you are getting, unfortunately. But for peace of mind, we're going to clean all of this up quickly, guys. Just doing this off camera, so because I'm standing 2 foot in front of it, I don't want to start moving the camera again, cleaning this up. But just to get it a little bit cleaner before I hit it with some nice alcohol cleaner at some point. But this is just disgusting. I mean, look at this. You can see it's white at the top. It's mixed in with the old one. Oh, that's horrible. That is horrible. Right, let's get some cleaner on that quickly. On the cloth. I don't want to be doing this and touching it really, but I have to, just to get things moving. Just when I move it out the way, it's not going to stain everything it touches. As you can see here, that's not the best. I may very well end up just changing that over, to be honest. It looks like it's got a few scores on it. There we go. It's better than it was, just to get it out the way. Same thing with all this grummy, horrible, mucky stuff. Mixture of brown and white, as you can see. And if you look, actually, if you look at the plinth now, you'll see where the original, this is the same as before, you'll see where the original thermal paste is actually still sitting on there. They haven't removed all the thermal paste. And if you look very carefully too, you'll see the original colour of the plinth to the resprayed. So there is no evading the fact that this hasn't been prepped properly. Now, normally with a lot of these I see, there's loads of dirt nestled everywhere over the spray. So I'm hoping it isn't the case when I take this out. Let's start with the screws that hold down the stator. For the assembly, we'll do 1, 2, and 3. Great start. So we've got 2 screws here from one different style plinth, and we've got another one here from an earlier one. So the screws that actually hold down the board are non-matching, which may actually answer the question as to what I spotted before I started the video. So what actually happened was you could rock the platter left and right slightly, because this is obviously not supported correctly, and it was moving because one of the screws was wrong. That answers that question, so my customer's going to be very happy with that. Now I found the issue. 1. Just trying to put these neatly out the way. So when I put these into their own little tubs, names on for my customer at least, then I know what's going on. So that's that done. Let's take the screws out for the fuse board assembly. PCB 1, 2. Then we'll take the screw out for the transformer that comes out of the deck. Sprung out the way, lovely. That's that. Move this literally slightly out of the way. Without looking over the camera, because I can't see it. Cool. Okay. Put that just like that for the second. So this is the spindle unit. Obviously you've seen a million of these before on videos. The thrust plate doesn't appear to be damaged, but it definitely hasn't been cleaned. Hasn't been greased. Hasn't been cleaned in the slightest. Not the worst of sim. It does still freely move, but that should have been stripped down and cleaned. As you can see now when I pull that up slightly, all that black gunk. See that? Hasn't been looked at. No surprise there. Now, let's think about this. I'm going to keep this in place and just switch the board around if I can get away with this, instead of me having to do this separately on a camera. Oh, lovely. So this here, again, is the thermal paste. And I think I'm pretty careful when I turn that round. There is nothing here. There's nothing on here. There's no way anything going to touch that. So we've got thermal paste on the board that shouldn't even be there. And I'm absolutely spot on with this. Not a section on this board has been touched. It's clean. It's original. Good. But nothing has been reflowed. Q201 hasn't been reflowed, which is, I mean, that's the first thing you do if you even strip these down, to make sure that you haven't got any breaks on the solder, because that can cause the runway speed issue if you're very unlucky, or one of the ways of causing that. But there's no reflowing of the solder at all on any part of this board. This is simply an original board. Now I'm happy with that, because it means that nothing's been tampered with, nothing's been changed. Quick look at the stator assembly itself, or stator, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't appear to be any nasty spots on there, anything visible. So yeah, we can get this out the way. That came out relatively easy as well, so you can tell obviously it's been apart before, because usually they're stuck on there good with the rubber grommets. We'll get this out the way and we'll look at the plinth. Okay, so straight off the bat, as per usual, the ones that have the sticker on them saying about the design changes in the service manual, that's all been sprayed over the top. So I mean, I would have masked that off and kept it there if you're very clever. But out of what I normally have to deal with this seller, the spray job isn't actually that bad. In fact, I'd say the spray job's actually pretty good. It's just, it doesn't match the colour, obviously, but they let themselves down with, like I say, this. They need to do a better job of replicating the graphics, because this is just terrible. That's not good enough, and doing this like that, no. But the actual spray job on this, there's no spray over dirt or anything like that, because the last few I've done, they're just almost like you just take everything out, give it a quick clean or wipe over, and just spray it with primer, then spray it with the spray. That isn't too bad. But still, this is where it gets let down. So we'll take off the trim now, being very, very careful doing this. There's a few ways that you can attack this, but when I looked at this earlier, it doesn't actually appear to be, yeah, there's not a lot of adhesive on this because it's the original. If I try and lift this up as gentle as possible, because the problem I've got, if he's sprayed around this and masked around this, you've got to be extremely careful that you don't pick the paint up with it. I had a pair in before Christmas where it had been masked around. Went to go and take them up, and you could see that all of the paint in the corner, all around the top and the bottom end of the trim, was all starting to lift. And it was going to start taking up the plinth. And I had to give my customer a call and say, look, I can do it. But if you want me, you've just got to be warned now. If I lift it and the paint comes up, there's nothing I can do about it. Because even at that stage, vinyl wrapping, with what I do, going around the edges, there's nothing you can do unless you're getting it stripped down, sprayed, powder coated, etc. Again, I'm doing this very carefully, trying to pull this outwards. There we go. So there's the original trim. Right, you can see it better now if I move this slightly more towards the camera. See this corner here? You can see it's the same colour as the actual plinth. It's because it's been resprayed. They masked around it and sprayed over it. So the original trim, straight in the bin with that. Oh, lovely. So we've got the original adhesive here. Looks awful. You can now clearly see it. You can see that the paint has obviously hit the shading cloth. It's disgusting, really, because look at the state of the shading cloth from the back. I mean, look at the gap on that. There really is no excuse for this. It's just laziness. I'm trying to cut corners and save a few quid. Why go through all of the rigmarole of selling something as refurbished and then not bothering with the little things that don't cost a lot of money? Pitch trim, shading cloth, paramount to these decks. You could have a really nice paint job and let it down by these bits here. So the first thing you see on top of a turntable is the quality of the paint, the graphics, and the trim. It's the first thing you're going to see when you pick a plinth up. So it is such a shame. They need to stop this. They need to stop and just start from the drawing board and, you know, and just go, this isn't good enough. Let's go the extra step and make our customers happy. Because there's not a lot of happy customers at the moment. I can reassure you of that when it comes to this seller. I've been getting a lot of grief from this said seller as well. These lot were they tried copying my website not long ago either. I had a lot of customers contact me making aware of this. And it was the final straw. And to be honest, I've never ever mentioned their name. Absolutely disgusting, but they've been trying to trade under my name, claiming to be the original Just Technics, which is utter rubbish. I know who they are, where they live, where they're trading under, and I would highly recommend they stop, because I've got enough to, well, I'm not even going to go into what I've been dealing with these guys, but all I'm saying is they need to stop, because it simply isn't good enough. Stop ripping people off and just do a good job. That's all I want, and that's what people expect. I'm not charging £200-300 for these. I'm charging a fortune. If you're going to do that, things like this with all the harness tape, do it properly. Take your time. Make your customer happy. Make them, when they open those boxes, they're going to go, wow. You know, not just, oh, wow, that was a waste of time. So there we go. That's the entire turntable stripped down. The arm assembly I'm not going to rip into on this video. There really is no point in doing that on here. I mean, the pins look clean on here. The socket hasn't been cleaned at all. That needs a good polish and strip down. The entire arm assembly is going to be stripped when I do this. But again, betting man with this, there is a colour difference between the top support bracket and the gimbal bracket. So I'm hoping they haven't resprayed over this. They may have dusted it. I'm hoping they haven't. But it needs a full strip down, full clean. Bearings need flushing out if they're in relatively good condition. I doubt it. They never usually are. I'm just starting from scratch for a fresh rebuild. So this is going to be cleaned. It's gonna have a new trim, new shading cloth. All this horrible old gunk's going to be gone. Deep clean within an inch of its life, and just rebuilt correctly. Service the board, reflowed, new proper thermal paste, not this horrific brown gunky computer crap that you're going to buy on Amazon and eBay. Proper thermal paste. Rebuild the spindle so that actually looks nice instead of being, well, you've seen it a second ago. It just doesn't look nice at all. This is all going to be machine polished, all nice and clean, free moving, much freer than this. You know, what you've actually paid for. Operation base is going to be fully stripped down. Buttons out, assembly clean. I mean, look at how dirty that is. I didn't actually comment on this when I took it out. Look at how dirty all this is. I mean, this isn't just spray. There is no excuse other than pure laziness. That's all going to be rebuilt. New switches installed. And we're going to go from there. So, let's pause the camera again. And there we go, guys. So, another, well, as I term the term even, Frankendeck, another Frankendeck in the Just Technics HQ. That's going to need a good, well, it's going to need a good service. I mean, in terms of what I'm tend to get through from this seller, there's certain things that I expect to see, and it's the same thing all the time. Like I say, be careful with the boxes. These will be the same boxes and the same rigmarole every time. They're easy to spot with the foam internals instead of being polystyrene. The serial numbers on the tops are a big no-no. The serial number and warranty stickers on the backs of them that cover the base to the top of the plinth, again, a big no-no. If you're paying for an original unit that's been fully serviced and refurbished, you want exactly that. The pitch control on it as well, let's not forget, the pitch control in the plus section was what, near 4%. At the +6, which is just ridiculous. The pitch was not calibrated. The pitch board looked horrific. But surprisingly, the plinth paint quality wasn't that bad on this one. They just let themselves down with everything else. So you're getting 10% of something that's okay, and then the 90% of the rest of the work, which is just shambolic, and really, you could do better yourself at home. Let's be honest. Anybody can take parts out of a turntable with watching a video. You could watch my YouTube video and do a better job than what they've done in terms of cleaning things up. There's a million different videos on how you can change over tactile switches. There's lots of really good quality equipment that you can buy to do bits at home, you know, removing old solder, learning how to reflow and remove solder, the thermal paste that's required, the tactile switches, buying the pitch controls. You really could do a better job at home than what this seller is offering here. And if you got it down to the extent where you could strip down an old Technics and just give that plinth, take the trim and everything off and all the mechanical tape underneath. Sorry, I've got brain fog. If you could take all the wiring harness tape off underneath, the shading cloth underneath the plinth, and the pitch trim off, give it a good clean, and give it to any vehicle sprayer, an alloy wheel sprayer, even an alloy wheel specialist can powder coat it for you. You give it to anybody, they'll do a good job for not a lot of money. You know, the graphics may be able to help you, may not be able to help you. You can buy the transfers online. I have also used transfers, but I clear coat mine into wrap. So, you can have them screen printed. People like my friend Sam over at Pimp My Decks for a good example. He can say the transfers, he can screen print them for you. So even if you got them resprayed by somebody else and then sent them up to, say, Sam and get him to do the powders, the screen printing for you, then you get them back, and, the paint's okay and everything else is done. And you can get them any colour you want. And you're spending next to no money. So if you're lucky enough to find a pair in pretty beaten up condition, but you're prepared to strip them down, and rebuild them backwards from watching videos, you can do this yourself. And just stop relying on spending a premium where you're not getting your money's worth. It's like the equivalent of my bike, guys. I gave my bike to a Ducati specialist He's been working on Ducatis for 15 years. He's one of a handful of people that was ever trained to work on the Desmodici their Ducati, which is basically the equivalent of a MotoGP bike for the road. I think it was, if you take the mirrors off a Desmodici, the bike's then too light and cannot be used in racing, from what I remember. But either way, he's one of a handful of people. Do you know you can trust him? He's a Ducati specialist. He works on the best Ducati ever produced, and he's done a good job, prices things accordingly, and you know you're going to get it back with no issues. That's how every single person within any business should operate. So whether it's Technics, motorbikes, your motor, buying computers, anything, if people had this bit of savvy on them and looking after people and doing a proper job, you wouldn't be having people like myself or anybody else who work on these turntables having to rectify problems that are caused by them in the first place. But sadly, in this day and age, it doesn't exist. Not everybody has the mentality of doing a good job and not ripping people off. And this is a classic example of, I'm going to do things however I want, get lots of good pictures, sell it on a fake box, say we've got original boxes, say we're going to service it when they have them, do a really bad job and charge you an extortionate amount. Luckily for my customer, he didn't buy this from the guys that sell these decks. It was bought privately, didn't pay a lot of money for it, and I think he's done pretty well. Considering what I tend to do and what I tend to have to work on from these, I have had it in the past where I've had to turn customers away with these decks, and it was getting to the point where I was seriously considering not touching any turntables that have been worked on by this seller. Again, it's not hard to spot who they are and where they're from or where these turntables originated from originally, because you see from looking at my previous videos the things to look out for. But they were getting so bad. There was another customer, he had a pair dropped off to him. He's only a young guy. He got his mum to drop him off. He spent over £1,300 on these turntables. A pair of, again, 1210 Mark IIs. So the black version of what we've got here. 1210 Mark IIs. He just bought them. Literally just bought them from this guy. Got them back, had audio problems, pitch wasn't correct, which again, very similar to what this one here is. Platters were terrible. The guy had gone through the transformer and rewired parts on there. 33 and 45 buttons were flush because he used newer switches and didn't put any spaces underneath on top of the tactile switches so that the actual sections weren't moving. It was just a shit show from start to finish. And I remember I felt really bad, and it was one of those, everything I was writing down, we're not talking 10, 20 pounds. And even if we were talking 10, 20 pounds, these parts you mount them up and up and up. We had like 3 A4 sheets of paper of problems and parts that needed to be replaced. And we were thinking things like screw kits, arm tubes on both, bearings, central sections that you can't buy unless you're going to 3D print them. That's another story. Plimps were in really bad condition where clear coat hadn't been applied properly. The graphics were coming off. The trims were lifting because he'd sprayed around them exactly the same as this. Shading cloths needed removing. Again, not expensive. But feet broken, warranty stickers. The bases didn't even match the tops. The bases of the decks said 1200s and not 1210. So they were the cut and shut of these decks. In fake boxes, horrible audio, transformers were humming. And I remember I phoned up his mum, as he was obviously dealing with this for her son. And I explained the situation and said, if you want to get these fully rectified in fully working order, you are going to be near enough paying the same cost of what your turntables cost you. So I think it was 13. I think I said 13 to 1400 quid. And it's not uncommon with these. My customer's very lucky that he didn't pay a lot with this, but luckily for him, the paint's in half decent condition. I can't knock the paint, but it's the finishing touches that let them down. So he's done all right. He has done all right with this one. But please be careful, guys. I'm asked weekly by email, can you phone me and help me with this? I've just bought these. What can you recommend? I've got people sending me photographs in. Look at this, list them for me. Sending me eBay listings to look at things. I try and get back to everybody I can as quickly as I can, but it is nigh on impossible with the amount of emails that I have to do as just my part of my daily business with my work, as well as all of the bookings that I have to do. Like this one here, for an example. Another pair in camouflage that I finished today after coming back from the week off, and other things that I've got going on. It's impossible for me to get back. And 9 times out of 10 with this, if people don't get a reply straight away and they're looking at a listing and ask the opinion, they'll just buy them anyway because they're too excited. The money burns a hole in your pocket and you end up buying them, and then you're in the position where you have to go, is it worth keeping them, or do I sell them and buy another pair that are in a more original, honest condition? So this customer with this bill, I did him a huge favour and just said, look, it's going to cost you now on what you've basically paid for these turntables. They are really, really bad, basically. I said, there's a big list of parts here. I started reading them out, so it's going to go over your head. I'm really sorry, but these are the issues that you've got. I can send them over to you. If you're going to keep them and keep them to do the bare minimum to them to keep the bill down, the bill was probably under half the price, which still was a lot of money. Still a lot of money. But he's happy now. I don't know whether he sold them or not. I advised I would, and then be honest about the work that's been completed. And obviously feel free to say that I've worked on them, but also make it aware that you bought these, they weren't in the condition stated, so I had to rectify the issues. And then no one ever does this. They tend to lie. I have people that sell turntables that have been worked on by me. They sell them 7-8 years later and then put on up for Facebook on for sale saying serviced by Just Technics or recently serviced by Just Technics, when the recently serviced is 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 9 years ago was the last ones that I saw. So it is bad that people could do this and try and get it off the name. There's another pair I saw that are wrapped in carbon fibre, which I did wrap. You can recognise my wrap straight away. Graphics were stickers, not level. Horrible job. Serviced by me and wrapped by me. Yes, stickers were not done by me, but don't mention it on the listings. So just be careful what you're looking for. But what I say to everybody is, if you are in the market for a set of Technics, I very, very, very rarely ever have any for sale. I tend to have original ones here that I will then wrap. I have them individually, and I'll put them up for raffles, so everyone gets a good deal for next to no money. So if you put £1 on and you win it for £1, you've won it. There's been 2 so far, and the third one's now live as well, which I'll put a link to as well on this video. So there is a new raffle up, guys, for those that are interested. But I never really have anything up for sale. I'd rather not do that. You get the tyre kickers, you get the ones that go, that's too expensive. Oh, I can buy a pair for that price. Yeah, I'm sure you can, but you're then in the realm of what you've just seen there, not knowing what you're buying. Whereas with mine, they're stripped down, clean, rebuilt with the right parts, correctly calibrated, and when it gets to you, you know it's going to be done properly. That's the big difference. So you're paying a little bit more, but you're getting something that ironically is still cheaper than what these cost individually from the seller. And there are a couple of people out there in the UK, which really pains me even saying this, who they won't know I know this, but they use this seller. They send their plimps to this seller to have them respray them, do that horrible job on the platter on both of them, and they'll literally give everything to this seller to rebuild and send straight back to the customer. Now, there's been 2 people in the past recently that had this happen. One person contacted me, was having loads of trouble, bought them from another retailer. The box, when he got them finally through the post, he waited 3 months for his turntables to arrive after paying the money. They were not as described. They were in really bad condition, overspray, incorrect pitch, all the usual rubbish that you'd expect, very similar to this. And the shop was really hostile, didn't want to give the money back, was shouting over the phone. I've got the copy of it. It's awful. And the reason I'm saying this is because the return address, the sender's address that sent the turntables to this customer was this seller. So the customer the shop that he bought them from or was getting the work completed from was not the shop that completed the work. So there's all these different smoke signal bullets, smokes and mirrors rubbish going around that you genuinely do not know what you're getting. And I think it's hilarious, to be honest, because these are turntables. It's not like you're buying gold, right? Is it really needed? If you're not completing work, make it honest make sure your customer knows that you're subletting the work and you're not doing this. What is the excuse? It's just ridiculous. So look, I hope that was entertaining for you guys. Another single turntable through the door that, no surprise there. There's other parts that are going to be needed, I'm sure, but we've got the general gist of what is going to be needed on here. I'm sure the bearings need to be replaced. I've got it sitting over on the workbench now. That's what I'm staring at, and I'll probably put money on the arm tube. May need some attention. Hopefully I can rejig that, but it doesn't look too good. Yeah, this is just a general thing that I have to deal with. That's going to take me a few days to get through and wham through that to get it to a condition that I can loosely put it back together and give it a good test. But ordered the parts in for that this morning. We'll get that through. So pitch trims on their way, shading cloths on their way, shader rectangular knob felts on their way, cables I built from scratch. So we've got new connectors turning up, power cables are on their way. Solder, plenty of that, thermal paste, plenty of that, and everything else that's needed, like capacitors and resistors, etc., are all in stock on the shelves. So I very rarely have anything for sale. So all I would say is the only person I would trust in the UK that sells these turntables, purely because I don't have any dealings with any other shops, the only person I deal with is Sam over at Pimp My Decks. Now, he does very similar to me with the respraying, powder coating, graphics, etc., but he does rarely have turntables available. So before you do contact me and ask if I have any available, I would highly recommend just going straight to the source and speaking to Sam, because if he hasn't, he may very well be able to recommend somebody that will be able to help you. All right. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to put a link to the raffle as well for the turntable that is up for grabs on this video description. So make sure you click on the description so you can see that. As always, thanks for watching. Any questions about turntables, if you're looking at something and you're a bit unsure and you think you're getting something that's similar to this, please feel free to email me. So it's sales@justtechnics.co.uk. All right, so sales@justtechnics, all one word, .co.uk. Send it over to me. I'll get back to you as quick as I can. Don't keep sending repeat emails. It just makes your emails go even further down the chain. And there are a lot of emails on here, I can tell you. So send one email and I will get back to you. But hold off buying anything until you've showed me the link. Simple as that, guys. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video. It's been a while as always. Sorry, but there will be another video shortly, guys. All right. Thanks very much. I'll speak to you all soon.